Globalization, a borderless world that interconnects the entire planet, and at what cost? In our digital age, we are absolutely swarmed with an array of electronic devices, tablets, iPods, laptops, video games, and have literally become dependent on modern technology where even the materialist bling culture and the entire world depends upon the diamonds, gold, copper, uranium, cassiterite, and tungsten from the Congo. What does it take to make a mobile phone? Many reports highlight the slave labor in factories in Asia, but little is known of the child labor in the Congo for tantalum that stores electricity, tungsten that makes our phone vibrate, and the tin for the circuit board, and the highest component, which is gold, that is weighed, then crushed into small pieces and shipped to Asia for the wiring of our laptop computers and our mobile phones to meet our consumer needs. When the United States dropped the bomb Little Boy on Japan during World War II, what was it made from? What makes space technology work? How are women treated as a result of this war in the Congo? The people of the Congo are one of the poorest on earth, but how rich is the country? The war in the Democratic Republic of Congo is the worst conflict since World War II, but hardly any news reports it. We can see why the war is so devastating. We depend upon it every day with the gadgets we use, including the very camera which is filming me, which depends on the electrical components from the Congo. Before we get into this conflict, let us look at a history which is not recorded, a history of Africa which you will rarely see or hear in the churches, in the media, or anywhere. Africa, the land of Kush, is considered as the most war-torn region on the earth. The 53 countries are either still recovering from colonialism or are in some kind of conflict. Most of them are from outside influences that stretch from Mali to the Sudan. There are manuscripts, books, and monuments in England that shows Europe's imperialism way into Africa that has not actually come to an end. But little is recorded of the Arab invasion, where descendants of slaves can still be found throughout the East in countries like Pakistan, in the south of Asia. US soldiers found an Arab-speaking black community in Iraq in Western Asia. There are descendants of blacks from the Turkish Ottoman Empire, African descendants in the Persian Gulf in Iran, and in Yemen in the Arabian Peninsula. there is still a Nubian community from antiquity in southern Egypt. The indigenous inhabitants of the Philippines are not the Orientals, but a community of blacks called the Negritos or the Ati. The London Telegraph recorded some of the earliest explorers of Asia. The primitive inhabitants of the Andaman Islands off the coast of India, whose numbers are sadly dwindling and they are now dying out and almost extinct. When slaves were imported to Latin America, they adopted the attire of the Spanish and the natives, where way more blacks were imported and enslaved in Latin America than in North America, the United States. Some are obviously poor, but others have become highly rich and successful as celebrities. The London Guardian did an article on the Afro-Mexicans, a highly neglected community in Latin America. But very little is known of these Africoid heads, first discovered in the middle of the 19th century, carved from solid volcanic rock with a height of 8 to 10 feet tall, of the oldest culture in Mesoamerica that preceded both the Aztecs and the Maya and have the oldest alphabetical script. Who did all these people descend from? According to the oldest record of the races of mankind, the generations of the sons of Noah in Genesis chapter 10, the black African and her descendants in Africa, Asia, Europe and the Americas are descendants of Cush, the eldest son of Ham, Ham being the younger son of Noah. This has been verified by Flavius Josephus, the 1st century Jewish historian, and George Rawlinson, the 19th century professor of ancient history at the University of Oxford. Race was not an issue in the ancient world as it is today. While all other races had straight hair, the woolly hair and the dark ebony-hued complexion made one of the ancient prophets to comment and ask, "Can the Ethiopian change his skin?" The 5th century BC Greek historian Herodotus, known as the father of history, described the people of Africa as thus: the furthest inhabited country towards the southwest is Ethiopia. The men are the tallest in the world, the best looking and longest lived. The Sudan is an oil-rich country that has been troubled by famine and war being waged on the blacks by the Arab Muslims in the north. But it was not always like this. This country was once the cradle of black civilization, with the highest number of pyramids on earth, even more than there are in Egypt, where pyramids are everywhere. In 2008, National Geographic did an article which it said was the most neglected area of study on antiquity, the Black Pharaohs. When incense burners were discovered in the Sudan, a close observation confirmed that there were pharaohs in the Sudan that preceded the pre-dynastic pharaohs of Egypt. Though it is a highly neglected area of study, one of these kings' legacy has been preserved on a 24-foot manuscript of the Dead Sea Scrolls in the book of the prophet Isaiah. His name is Taharka, and he is mentioned twice in the Holy Scriptures. He formed an alliance with the 14th king of Judah, Hezekiah, to defeat the Assyrians and expand this African empire which stretched from the Sudan to the Mediterranean Sea. And this is where Congo's tragedy began. A Christianity first introduced by the Portuguese, one that was alien to the teachings of the apostles, which was despotic, aggressive, imperialistic, and very hostile to the liberty of mankind, Catholicism. The late African-American scholar and devout Christian Chancellor Williams wrote a book that documented Congo's demise. The Kingdom of Congo therefore is a case study of the processes of westernizing the very first group of blacks on the African continent. The Mission Fathers, the War Dogs of the Lord, the Jesuits were most helpful as spearheads into the interior chiefdoms to form slave-hunting alliances in exchange for discarded guns. The Jesuits, the sons of Loyola, penetrated into a country that has been called the lungs of Africa. They did meet some resistance though with an African warrior by the name of Queen Anne Zinga, who challenged the Portuguese Empire and the Jesuits. But Rome continued to march on and on, westernizing the Congolese from their names to their attire. Even the king changed his name. But when the Belgians came, exploitation intensified to a whole new level in the 19th century for Congo's huge supply of rubber by a king who didn't even step onto Congo's soil, Leopold II. When he died, he was praised by the English Jesuit Bernard Vaughan. But to make matters worse, a Congolese was used in an exhibition in New York alongside a chimp to try and prove that the African was the link between monkey and man. One man wanted to change Congo's image, Patrice Lumumba, a 34-year-old radical. He did not mind the Belgians staying in the Congo, as long as the Congo and its rich minerals can be ruled and owned by its own people and are not subject to the colonialism of Belgium. But his presidency ended after only 10 weeks, for he was overthrown and assassinated by a coup that was led by colonial-minded Congolese soldiers. Soldiers and intelligence officers from Belgium, the Western-controlled United Nations and its soldiers, the CIA as confirmed in a recent confession, and the Catholic Church, whose representative in the Congo was Bishop Malulu. The ecclesiastical hierarchy was the most important Congolese source of support for the coalition of Western powers. Catholicism was the state religion. Bishop Malulu rejected the Congolese government recommending the strict division of church and state and total freedom of worship. The Western powers installed President Mobutu from 1965 to 1997 until they had no use for him, and now the current president, Joseph Kabila, is also a puppet of the Western powers. It can sometimes be very hard looking at war and the horrors. But what is beautiful is that Christ says that when we see these things, look up, for your redemption draweth nigh. The surety we have that all these things are going to come to an end.